Hello and welcome to the classroom where we do politics and socio-economic matters in Africa and across the world. My name is Henry, your professor in practice. And if you want to be part of our class, then all you need to do to gain admission is go right now and subscribe to our YouTube page at POV Nigeria. Press the notification bell so you will be the first to be notified whenever we drop our contents. This is the classroom. I'll be with you in a bit. Don't go anywhere.
The classroom.
Thank you so very much for being part of our show today, and let's get talking. Today we would be talking about something very so important as we have observed and experienced in Nigeria and equally Africa as a whole for a very long time, and that is lack of leadership, the deficit of leadership across Africa, from Kenya to Tanzania to Nigeria. The story is the same. We'll have a gross lack of leadership across board, especially amongst those leading these countries across Africa. According to neuroscience and psychology, it says that when an individual who is not qualified but fighting for legitimacy and power, then the person is possibly suffering from what they call the Dunning-Kruger effect or the delusion of grandeur. Now, let's talk about it for a bit. Now, neuroscience and psychology puts it this way, that the person is going through what they called Dunning effect, Dunning-Kruger effect, Dunning-Kruger effect, or a delusion of grandeur. Now, this is what people like this are going through. People who are not qualified, people who overestimate what they can do. Remember, across Africa, the story is the same. What we have are leaders that are not capable, leaders that do not have what it takes, leaders that have no quality in them to lead the people. But most of the time, these same leaders love to force themselves into a leadership. And when they do, it's total disaster. And this is some amongst the many reasons why Africa is still very debased. Africa is the only continent in the world with the largest number of impoverished people. Africa is the only continent in the world with the largest number of out-of-school children, with Nigeria, my dear country, having the most of them all across the globe. About 23 million Nigerian children are out of school. That is the population of 5 countries added together. Unfortunately, that's what we have in my country, in Nigeria. And all of this is centered on lack of leadership or deficit of leadership. Now, let's get talking on why that is the case. Why is it that individuals whom we would love to call opinion leaders, right, are not good enough to lead a people? Now, neuroscience and psychology puts it this way, or differentiates it this way. There is a very big difference between someone you would call a leader, and another person you would call a ruler. That's a very big difference. They are not the same. A leader is someone that you look up to because of their positive conduct. A leader is someone you look up to. Everyone looks up to them because of their positive composure, their positive behavior, because of their empathy, because of the quality of their service to the people. That is a leader. However, a ruler is someone whom everyone looks up to because they do not have an alternative. A ruler is someone with a very negative conduct, but everyone looks up to them because they do not have an alternative. So that is the difference between a leader and a ruler. Unfortunately, in Africa, what we have in Africa, across different countries in Africa, is this sort of individuals, rulers, and not leaders. Because what is the quality of a ruler? The quality of a ruler is someone without empathy. The quality of a ruler is someone who wants to take everything all to themselves. The quality of a ruler is someone who has this insatiable quest for wanting more. The qualities of a ruler is someone who knows in the innate part of himself that he is or she is not qualified enough to hold position of power, but they use every trick in the books, calling themselves master strategists to take over rulership of their people and their country. And usually, when the ruler takes over leadership of a country or a community, what you see from the very beginning of taking over leadership is total disaster. It's a template. It's a template. And the template is made possible or manifested because of the qualities of someone who takes the toga of a ruler rather than a leader. A leader is someone who comes and things change. A leader is someone who comes into an environment and everyone feels excited. A leader is someone who comes in and even the most vulnerable someone, of course, who is not, of course, taken for anything, feels the pulse of such an individual. That is what we call a leader. In Africa, unfortunately, we have less of leaders and more of rulers. Now, there is a science behind all of these things. Nothing happens for nothing. For every behavioral trait of human beings, there's a reason for it. And the reason actually is made possible as a result of what we have in our gray matter, which is the brain. Everything is centered around the brain. When someone behaves well, it's as a result of what he has encapsulated. It's as a result of something he has, of course, eaten all to himself, and therefore he manifests it. So the brain is the hub, the brain box of everything that we do. And that is why it's very so important that we explain this thing so we have a better understanding of where we are coming from. Now, let us go into sciences and understand why we have more of rulers than leaders. Now, that's a part of the brain, of course. There are different parts of the brain. For the sake of this class, I would love to describe just three very important parts of the brain. Now, this is a schematic diagram. This is the schematic diagram of the brain. Now, when you look at this schematic diagram, this particular part of the brain is called the prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain is called the hippocampus. The very most important part of the brain with regards to why rulers behave the way they do is called the nucleus accumbens. Now, there are other parts of the brain, right? But you see these very important parts. These three very important parts, the prefrontal cortex, the hippocampus, and the nucleus accumbens, are some of the reasons why rulers behave like rulers. And we are going to explain why this is so. Now, when someone experiences something new, let's say a young boy who is going through difficulties as a result of economic downturn in his country, and he is baited with the trick that if he joins a cult group or if he joins a gang of kidnappers, that he would make money. Now, such offer is given to that young man. Let's say the young man is naive and decides to go into kidnapping, for example. Now, what has happened in the brain, the gray matter of this young man, is that the hippocampus, which is the storage part of the brain, is like the external hard drive of the brain, stores the information. The hippocampus stores the information that kidnapping is the only source that he might, of course, get relief out of his poverty. Now, when the hippocampus stores the information, right, what it does basically is it transmits the neurons to the nucleus accumbens. It transmits it to the nucleus accumbens, and the nucleus accumbens is referred to as the reward center of the brain. The reward center of the brain. Now, what happens in the nucleus accumbens is that it produces what we call the neurochemical dopamine. The neurochemical dopamine is produced in the nucleus accumbens. Now, the neurochemical dopamine is what makes you feel the desire to want more. Right, so the young man who has stored the information that kidnapping is the best part, right, decides to go to do the action as a result of the neurochemical dopamine released from the nucleus accumbens. Right, so when that is reactivated or activated, what the prefrontal cortex does is the prefrontal cortex gets the person ready to want to take over that particular position or to act in accordance to what the neurochemical dopamine has asked them to do. So let's say this young man commits this crime of kidnapping, right? And the ransom gotten as a result of this kidnapping is 20 million naira. And when the loot is divided, this young man gets a paltry sum of maybe 4 million naira. Now, this young man knows that the action he has taken in order to get himself better, even when we know it's illegal, it's a sin, right? It's 4 million naira. Now, what happens is this. If this young man spends this 4 million naira and it is exhausted, what happens is the hippocampus, which has stored the information that kidnapping is a very good thing, is reactivated again. Transmits the neurons to the nucleus accumbens that said, okay, let's go and do it again. And the prefrontal cortex gives the young man the gusto to want to repeat it. Now, this exact example is what happens in the life of our rulers in different parts of Africa. You see people who know that they are not what being leaders, being presidents of a country. When they are convinced, when they use their money, their popularity, when they use all sort of stuff to get the position of power, which is stored in the hippocampus in their brain, the good experience, the feel-good experience of being the president of a country is stored in the hippocampus. Right? What happens is the nucleus accumbens reward center releases neurochemical dopamine in the life of that president that often makes him feel that he is the god. That often makes him feel that when he sleeps, his community sleeps. The neurochemical dopamine makes him feel that he is the best person. It makes him feel that it is his turn. It makes him feel that no one else can wrestle this opportunity away from him. Without him, no one else can do it. It's as a result of the neurochemical dopamine released from the nucleus accumbens. And what usually happens is the prefrontal cortex gingers the young man or old man or great-grandfather like Paul Biya of Cameroon to make them feel that they are the best person. Even at 92, Paul Biya, who could hardly walk, he can't even differentiate the difference between a chicken and a beef, still wants to rule Cameroon at 92. It's as a result of the hippocampus that makes him feel that he is Cameroon and not the Cameroon, that the nucleus accumbens releases the neurochemical dopamine that makes him feel that no one else is better than me, and the prefrontal cortex makes him feel that he can run again and again. And that is the problem we have with leadership in Africa, unfortunately. Now, what is activating these things? For example, if we want to get rid of all of these things, one of the best way for leaders to stay off the actions of these three parts of the brain is to limit the number of blind loyalists around them. Because what usually activates this is what we call motivators. When a leader surrounds himself with blind loyalists, people who are singing on your mandate we should stand, a judicial system that cannot tell the truth, an electoral umpire that feels that the man who has chosen me as the owner or the referee of this match, I should pay him back. So when we have a group of pockets of loyalists, okay, they are called the motivators, and they motivate the hippocampus to make the leader feels that, hey, this feel good experience, I wouldn't want to let it go. And the nucleus accumbens releases the neurochemical dopamine to make the president feels, hey, no one is better than me. And the prefrontal cortex finally makes the leader feel, hey, let me run again and again. In the case of Paul Biya, and in the case around the different countries in Africa, where people know they are not qualified for a position, but they want to go over and over again. So I sincerely feel that if we must get it right in Africa, if we must get it right in Nigeria, my country, then these three very important parts of the brain must be checked in order for us to see a better society, to see a better continent, and to see a better country. That's my take today in the classroom. And I love to believe we'll have learned one or two, of course, live lessons, especially in neurosciences and psychology. My question for today is, or my assignment for today is, do you think it's possible for us to have leaders like Nelson Mandela, who sat for 27 years in prison on behalf of his people, but desired to run for one term as a president because he has control of his prefrontal cortex, his hippocampus, and nucleus accumbens? Do you think we can have such kind of leaders in Africa again and again? So that is my question, the assignment. Remember, you can post your answers on the comment section, and of course I'll be there to read them and grade you. You can always follow us on all our social media platforms, but most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube page at POV in Nigeria. My name is Henry, your professor in practice. I'll see you in another class. Bye-bye.
The classroom.